In this short episode, we are going to discuss what are the 4 key stakeholders that contribute to making a wonderful brand. If you're interested in learning more, continue listening. Welcome to the Red to Black podcast with your hosts, Warner and Mario. And today we're discussing the 4 key stakeholders that go into creating a wonderful brand. Mario, what is the number 1 stakeholder?
It's customers. Warner, it's taking care of your customers and then having them evangelize your product. So they have a relationship with your product. They trust it, they use it, and then they also share it with their friends, their family, where they do business, where they interact with other people. That's the number one. The number 1 stakeholder in any business is taking care of the customers, the people that use the product.
Yeah, so let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So what is a great brand doing with its customer? Let's take an example. Let's say like a Red Bull. Well, a great brand, if it's going to be a successful brand, it's offering certain value points to that customer. And there's a book called The Blue Ocean Strategy, which talks about how certain businesses operate in these blue oceans where they're not competing on price, they're competing on value. So each year they can raise their price more. And we'll do another podcast on the Blue Ocean Strategy. So talking a little bit more about value, what are the value points that Red Bull offers? Well, in my opinion, they've nailed the recipe. It's a great tasting beverage. And then number 2, they've created this experiential brand where it's like they took the adventure sports market, which used to be this like hippy dippy, because I've been in it my whole life, market that wasn't really going anywhere. And they put it on like the world-class stage. I mean, think about surfing. It used to be deadbeat druggies, right? That's what the image was. Mountain biking, just dudes getting dirty on the mountain. I don't have time for that. Whatever other sport you think about, with maybe the exception of skiing, because skiing's got a lot of money and a lot of brands behind it, most adventure sports were just these dumpy sports. They brought this brand, infused money into it, created like heroes in it. Those are some value points. So when you like drink a Red Bull, you're also drinking to this huge content brand and experiential like sports that sit behind it. So that's essential when you're building a business or looking to invest in a business. Do you have the brand? Does it hit certain value points that the customers love? Because what is a great brand doing? It's creating trust and loyalty. And that can only be done if it's hit through a certain brand, and then those individuals will evangelize for you. Yeah, that's about it, Mario. Any other thoughts?
Now let's step into number 2. So number 2 stakeholder that makes a great brand is the employees. So they have a clean workspace. They're getting paid. They're getting compensated well, and they're able to do their best work inside that company. So you're retaining talent. It's almost a leadership academy. You're able to recruit great people. You bring them in. You train them. You educate them. You watch them grow. And 20 years later, you have a leadership cadre. You have an executive leadership team within the business, the people that have been there around there for decades. That's a great brand. If they have employees that are sticking around for multi-decades and doing their best work inside that business, that's a great brand.
Yeah, and I think they cultivate that by not like through this forcing and manipulation, saying, "Oh, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you." They create such a great environment. And in that environment, they just say, "Hey, listen, here's your performance criteria. Either you meet it or you don't." And they create such a cool environment that you really desire, you want to meet that performance criteria. And they want to build you up. So in the future, like just like a great chef like Thomas Keller or Daniel Ballad, go look at those chefs like at any restaurant around the country and ask how many like of the great ones have worked for Thomas Keller. Like he wants to build up these great chefs that work for him and produce, but at the same time, he wants them to go out and spread their own wings and do their own thing. So I think a great brand like builds employees up, but also gives them the choice in the future. Hey, do you want to continue forward here, or do you want to go out and do your own thing? And those employees will always talk about how great it was to work for Red Bull or Coca-Cola or whatever, Johnson & Johnson, whatever brand it is, right? But they don't create this environment where you're just slogging it out and suffering through it. I mean, I guess a perfect example would be the Marine Corps. 94% of enlisted people leave after the first year. It's a brutal, or it's a great organization, but it's not, I would say, an organization that creates this like wanting to be in for the long term. Any thoughts on that, Mauro?
I think it's the first 4 years, but I don't think it's 90 that high, 94%. I would say like McKinsey.
Oh, it's not 94. We'll check those numbers. I may be wrong on that.
Yeah, leave it in the comments below. So
yeah, in the comments below. Am I way off? Okay.
It
Thanks.
might be.
Yeah. Next one.
I think we hammered employees. Let's go to community. So 2 things is the business has the respect to the community and is also a contributor. It's a good steward of the community, of the environment. So number two would be, or number three is, do they have leverage, or do they have the ability? Does the community want the business there? And is there some respect? Oracle can pivot. It's going to provide jobs. It's going to provide infrastructure. It's going to be a good steward of the local community that they choose to do business in. But it's a choice. And if the community doesn't respect the business, it'll pivot out of that community. So that's part of a great brand, has the ability to be loved and loved and respected by the community, or pivot into a new community if they don't feel love.
Yeah, and I think I know in the last one I talked a little bit about the Marine Corps like churning and burning out people, but what they're really good at is like really ingratiating their community. Now I know like in Okinawa and other areas where you've been deployed and I've been deployed, there's a few bad apples and they'll lock down the base because maybe the relations with the Okinawans aren't that great, but I've been there, man. And most of the Okinawans are very gracious, loving people, and I didn't have any issues with them. And if you look,
well, the bartenders want to turn, as soon as that happens, they all want to turn it back on. They lose a lot of revenue on the weekends, so they're like protesting. Let the Marines back out.
I know. So I would say in the areas where maybe the Marine Corps has a bad reputation, I say this more at the upper levels. It's a political thing, but the lower levels, like in San Diego or Oceanside or other areas, yeah, there's some drunk Marines that get crazy, but as a whole, the Marines have done a great job from the officer leadership down to the staff NCOs to the enlisted, like lower level enlisted ranks. They've done a phenomenal job on saying, hey, listen, when you go out on the weekends and through the boot camp training, like you're a Marine, uphold yourself to that high standard, right? And I know some will go crazy and create a bad name, but most of them that I've seen are respectful individuals. They have, they help people. They say hi to people. They create a really good presence in the community. You ask most people, they have a high opinion of Marines. So that's what you want to think about with a company. When you go around and people start talking about the company, do the employees, because the employees are what create that community, because they're going out into that community. Does that community have a high opinion of that company? And the reason we talk about this, if you're thinking about investing in, this is mostly for investing in or buying a business, you want to know what the vibe on the street is. That's really essential before you buy or invest in that business. Any more thoughts on that, Mario?
Now we'll step into number 4. It's investors. The investors are sticking around for the long term, and they're receiving a fair compensation for the risk they've taken. They're not churning and burning their investors. People aren't disappointed when they make an investment in this business. A great brand is able to reward its investors for long-term loyalty.
Yeah, and we talked about our brand Soho House. Would they have so let's look at Soho House real quick. We talked about it in another podcast, so we'll put the link below. And in that podcast, we talked about I talked about how I said they're a good brand, and Mario corrected me, and I saw some things I'd never seen before in a brand. They're a good brand in certain aspects, but they don't have the whole holistic approach kind of nailed down. What I mean by that is they're good at like their customers, and I'm not sure about their employees, but I know about their customers and the community. I mean, I know they seem to have a good reputation in the community, and the customers, they have like a 10,000 plus waiting list long. So they've nailed that down. Now on the investor side, the investors haven't gotten paid back. Some recently did in the IPO markets, but that's essential too, because a company is like a living organism full of people. It's not just about the customers, because on the other side, if the investors aren't happy, okay, you can have happy customers, but then if the brand's not there anymore because it's mismanaged by too much debt, then that's not going to be a company that you want to invest in or buy. Because remember, this podcast is about creating financial freedom. And the things that you invest in, it requires entities that are going to go the long haul. Like you said, Mario, a great investor is determined over 20 to 30 years. So when we're talking to you guys as our listeners, we want you to invest in businesses that have these 4 areas.